Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the second day of what has been an excellent series of talks at the Antalya Diplomacy Forum. For this session, we shift our focus to the Asia-Pacific and look at how the region's political, security, and economic architectures have proved resilient to maintain peace, manage stability, and promote prosperity. Now, historically, the Asia-Pacific has often experienced great power competition and meshed with local rivalries, quarrels, and conflict. Over the last decade, the region has become increasingly complex with the rise of non-traditional security challenges and new economic opportunities. Regional platforms, alliances, and initiatives are very much part of the balance of power politics in Asia. It requires cool, calm, and effective diplomacy to build trust and foster cooperation to meet the regional challenges. So, it is fitting that we have a distinguished panel of 4 important government ministers from the region to share their insights and experiences in effective diplomacy to achieve fruitful win-win situations. Perhaps they will also talk about what could have been done better. I'm not sure whether they want to talk about some of the problems and difficulties they face, but we hope that they do, and their hopes for the future. So let me quickly mention the panelists. First, on my left, is Dato Sri Zamri Abdul Qadir, the Minister of Higher Education from Malaysia. Next to him is Mr. Hassan Mahmud, the Foreign Minister from Bangladesh, and Mr. Taraka Balasuria, the State Minister for Foreign Affairs from Sri Lanka. And last but not least, the pretty lady on the end is Madam Nguyen Minh Hang from the Deputy Foreign Minister of Vietnam. Now, as to the format of the session, I will introduce the first panelist, pose a question to the minister to give a 5-minute reply before moving on to the next panelist with the same format, that is, a short introductory biography, a question, and a reply, after which I will invite questions and comments from the floor. So, let's start with a gentleman with a distinguished reputation in my part of the world, Southeast Asia, or ASEAN, Dato Sri Zamri Abdul Qadir from Malaysia. Dato Zamri has served as the Malaysian Minister of Higher Education in the Unity Government Administration under Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim since December 2023. He has been also a senator since December 2022. He served as the Minister of Foreign Affairs in the Pakatan Harapan administration under Prime Minister Anwar from December 2022 to December 2023. Dato Zamri has also had experience in the private sector as the non-independent and non-executive chairman of Malaysian Airports Holding Berhad from August 2020 to December 2022. So, Dato Zamri, what, in your views, are the pertinent lessons we have learned from successful cooperation models in the Asia-Pacific, and how will digital tools and other new technologies shape the future of the region?
Thank you. Thank you, Lawrence, for your kind introductions. I feel pretty much humbled to share some of my thoughts with you due to my current position as a higher education minister. However, based on my previous experience as a foreign minister, I would say that the new nomenclature of Asia-Pacific, which is now called Indo-Pacific, it depends on which bloc you talk to. In the context of Southeast Asia, ASEAN in particular, we like to be part with both nomenclature, that is the Asia-Pacific as well as the Indo-Pacific, which is used interchangeably depending on the area of discussion, particularly in the area of security, the area of corporations, in economy, education, and so on and so forth. However, from our point of view, especially from ASEAN point of view, we are a bit concerned on the rise of interest from different blocs. As much as we are so eager to know the intent and purpose of this power to come to this part of the world, with certain ideas and what they call now mini-lateralism's approach by having a different arrangement to this part of the world, especially in Indo-Pacific, now they call Indo-Pacific, as well as in South China Sea. You have all kind of blocks now. You have on one side from the Indian Ocean side, you have Quad. You also have another block called AUKUS, and many form of mini-lateralism instead of multilateralism arrangement. I see this from the ASEAN point of view, and particularly from Malaysia point of view. We welcome this idea as far as our peaceful coexistence is concerned, because it is very important for us to maintain Southeast Asia, in particular ASEAN, as a region of peace and cooperation, inviting peoples of different economic interests, in particular, to work together with us, because, as you know, Malaysia, and for that, Singapore also not a small, not a big country. ASEAN's, is basically is a associations of regional corporations, which is very stable, and yet it is open to any possibilities. Therefore, the ASEAN's standings is very simple, that we want to make sure that this part of the world, in particular in Indo-Pacific or Asia-Pacific, whatever you want to call it, must be a region of peace and prosperity. Now, coming to your second observation on the what can we do in today's world with all the new economies coming up, it's no doubt that we have to embrace the new technologies and new economy, particularly in the digital economy world. We are, as a whole, a digital native. Now, it's a new term they use. They don't call you whether you are Singaporean, you are Malaysian, you are, from different countries. They call all of us as a digital native. Digital native, we all embrace digital world. Therefore, we have to really focus on how we all can work together with the expertise of everyone around, including the expertise of the major powers, to come together, to work together, to maintain this part of the world as a world of peace and prosperity, where economic vibrancies can move, can bring all countries together.
Well, thank you, Dato. I share your views on these things, not only because we are from ASEAN countries and we are neighbors, but also because, you speak with a lot of authority and you speak with a lot of truth. And I think the point that you were talking about digital technologies is something that will resonate very much with our Turkish audience, because Turkey is one of the foremost countries in this part of the world that's very much into IT technologies and the new technologies that's embracing the rest of the world. So, perhaps there is a great opportunity for greater cooperation between ASEAN and Turkey on this very important area.
Right.
Right. So, but thank you very much. Now, let me move on. I was going to...
You can ask me questions.
Oh, okay. We thought that we were going to switch. But next, we have the distinguished foreign minister, Mr. Hassan Mahmud from Bangladesh. Now, although he was appointed foreign minister relatively recently, since last January, Dr. Hassan Mahmud has extensive experience in government. Prior to assuming his current post, Dr. Mahmud was Minister of Information and Broadcasting since January 2019. He served as the Minister of Environment, Forest, and Climate Change from 2009 to 2014. He also had an earlier stint in diplomacy as the State Minister of Foreign Affairs, extensive indeed. So Foreign Minister Hassan Mahmud, you are a well-known environmentalist, both at home and abroad. So my question to you is the Asia-Pacific region effectively utilizing available opportunities in addressing transnational issues such as climate change, and also offer your views on maritime security and terrorism?
Look, thank you very much for your question. Indeed, we live in a planet. This is the only lifeboat for human in the big universe. And how big is the universe? Very often we forget. Universe is so big. The planet Earth was created 4.5 billion years ago. Since then, the light with the velocity 186,000 kilometer per second is traveling, but still light from different stars have not been reached to our planet Earth. And recent findings says that there are more than 2 billion galaxies. And our galaxy's width is, if I am not wrong, 100,000 light year, one galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy, where we live, our planet Earth is there. So this is the only lifeboat for human in the big universe. And when the planet Earth is, environmentally degraded, and planet Earth is affected due to the climate change, all the people of the planet are affected. Now your question, how, what we are doing in our region. You see, the ecosystem, whole ecosystem, and the environment is not limited to any region. And today the climate change, and the cause of climate change is the excessive emission of greenhouse gases by the developed countries. That has been done over the last few decades and few centuries after the Industrial Revolution. So we are in the region, all the countries are the innocent victim of climate change. We have contributed very little to the cause, and we are the victim. So what we are doing, I would say, as a student of environmental science, I would say we are not doing much from our part. And the responsible parties for whom this climate change has taken place, they are not doing much either. And they are not delivering their responsibility according to the international treaties. And we could have more cooperation, more coordination among us to fight the climate change, to protect our environment, but we are not doing much. Because you see, the cause of climate change, cause of emission of greenhouse gases, source is local, impact is global. You see, source is local, but impact is global. So when there is emission in India, there might be acid rain in Bangladesh. When the source is in Malaysia, but acid rain could take place in Indonesia, the vice versa also. So we should have more cooperation and coordination in this respect. But we are not doing much. And in different international forums, we talk a lot, but we deliver very little. And in the regional forums as well, I mean, we could have done more. But this is good, as I see. I was given the responsibility of Minister of Environment back in 2009. So since then, I see the difference among in the understanding of the political leadership of the globe. In 2009, the understanding of the political leadership was very little. And many people, many political leadership of the globe denied even whether climate change is real or not. But today, everybody understands that this is real, affecting everyone. So you can, you could not think 20 years back that drought in Siberia, and in Pakistan they had flood. For the last couple of years, they had devastating flood in Pakistan. They are not acquainted with flood, so they did not know how to manage that. But in Bangladesh, we live with flood. Back in 1950s, we had the understanding we should control flood, but later we realized we cannot control flood. We have to live with flood. In Bangladesh, for example, every year 20% of the land area of Bangladesh goes underwater. And every 10 years, 60 to 70% land area goes underwater. Very often, you might have seen in the newspaper, in the world media, that in the street of Dhaka, in the street of vehicle, there are boats. So this is the scenario every 10 years in Bangladesh. So we have learned how to live with flood. So we should have the same in other regional countries also. So we should have more coordination, more cooperation, and united effort and projects and etc. We are not doing much, I would say.
Thank you very much, Minister, for your very enlightened points and very relevant, about stressing the need for cooperation. And there's a certain amount that we can do individually, as you say, but, we are not going to get very far unless we all learn how to cooperate on this very, very important thing. And we owe it to the future generations for this. But thank you very much. And let me move on to Mr. Teraka Balasuriya, who was appointed State Minister of Foreign Affairs in September 2022 for Sri Lanka. He was previously State Minister for Regional Cooperation from August 2020 to May 2022. Now, Foreign Minister Balasuriya counts nearly a decade in politics, preceded by 15 years of corporate experience in the insurance and banking sectors. And prior to his entry into politics, he was head of corporate business at Sri Lanka's largest insurance company. So, my question to you, Mr. Minister, what is your assessment of the role that the major powers have had in your part of the Asia Pacific, that is the Indian Ocean and South Asia?
Well, I think the interest of the major powers in the Asia and the Asia Pacific is mainly to do with the rise of China and the rise of the other Asian economies, including India. And depending on their interests, either they try to curtail it or to boost the countries, depending on the perceived friendship which they have with these countries. I think it's very imperative that the Asia resolves its own problems, and then there's dialogue between the Asian neighbors. Unlike I think a good example in Asia is the ASEAN countries, where you have 150 million Muslims, 150 million, I think, Hindus, and 150 Buddhists, and there's a large Christian population where they work very well together. So it's imperative that the Asian countries come together in order to resolve the issues in the neighborhood. And also, unlike in Europe, when you look at Asia, if you look at even the big the rivalries between India and China, we have not historically seen, although there has been border disputes, we have not historically seen wars between India and China. mainly because of the geographies. You have the Himalayas, then you have the jungles of the Vietnam, Laos, and all those countries. So I think also that we need to have better integration with the Asian countries. So whereas the ASEAN has succeeded, I think, due to political rivalries. The SAARC has not succeeded in its same efforts. If you look at the intra-trade in the ASEAN, it's about 25%, whereas in the SAARC countries, it's about 4 or 5%. So we need to look at the ASEAN model and see it as an example and how we can adapt that to the rest of Asia. And certainly, we need to have peace in Asia in order for the Asian countries to succeed. Sri Lanka was one of the first countries which stated that in 1970, I believe 1972, that we want Indian Ocean to be an area of peace. And we are still of the same view, and I know that particularly the South Asian countries are also of the same view. And also, we need to open up. Now, if you look at Sri Lanka's the trade, our revenue from areas such as customs account for about 14% of our GDP, which goes to show that, we are very much a closed nation. So we need to open up and we need to integrate with the other countries. We just signed a FTA with Indonesia. We are working on a PTA with Bangladesh. We are working on a PTA will be signed with, I'm sorry, we signed FTA with Thailand, and a PTA will be signed with Indonesia this month. So economic integration will result in more peaceful, confidence-building measures amongst the Asian countries.
Well, thank you very much, Minister. You have elaborated a bit about what SAARC and ASEAN have in cooperation. Would you like to maybe add a comment about what about the major powers, the external powers of the region? What's your view on cooperation with them?
Well, as I stated that, it's either the major powers are trying to either curtail China or to, and so they can look at the other Asian countries as pawns in this the game of chess in how you curtail China. But Sri Lanka has followed a non-aligned policy since 1950s, and we see that different alliances being made, and we find merits in all these alliances. So depending on our interests, we will we will take decisions on whether we will join or not. Now, for example, if you look at the operations in the Red Sea, we feel that although we support the Palestinian cause to the tilt, that it doesn't mean, but we also believe in the freedom of navigation. Yes. And if the freedom of navigation is disturbed in the Red Sea, Sri Lanka, being an island state, will lose out. We have to pay higher cost for the commodities which we import. So depending on this situation, Sri Lanka will choose to, Sri Lanka will not align with any major power, but we will choose to make alliances depending on the situation.
Yes, thank you very much. I think that's a very sensible policy of Sri Lanka that most of us in the region would tend to follow. And your point also about talking about the problems in Gaza and having the impact on the Red Sea is something we all face, that even though incidents may be happening thousands of miles away, it has impact upon our part of the world, just like problems that are happening in our part of the world will have impact on Europe or in the Middle East or even in this part of the world. But let us move on to Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, Nguyen Minh Hang. Is a career diplomat with over 23 years of experience in promoting Vietnam's international integration process, multilateral diplomacy, and economic diplomacy for national development. During her career, Deputy Minister Hang has covered a wide range of responsibilities in the Foreign Ministry in Vietnam and abroad. And I'm happy to note that one of her assignments overseas was to my country at the Embassy of Vietnam in Singapore. So my question to you, Deputy Foreign Minister Hang, is how do regional organizations like ASEAN influence the balance between cooperation and competition among regional actors in the Asia-Pacific?
Firstly, thank you very much for a very kind introduction. Firstly, I would like to express our sincere thanks to the host, Turkish government, for excellent arrangement for this forum, and also for your, I think, that very timely and great initiative. I think that it is really high time for us to advocate the role of diplomacy in preventing conflict, solving the dispute, fostering cooperations, and working together for peace, stability in the region and in all over the world. I share many thoughts and views that have been put forward by our previous esteemed ministers. I think that we agree with each other that the regions, the Asia-Pacific regions has becoming more complex, multi-layered. And the regional architecture are witnessing, I think, that profound changes and transformation. This is because, as some of you has mentioned, because the involvement, the engagement of the major actors, the rising of the non-security non-traditional challenges, and also on the new opportunities for economic development from the development of the new technologies, as some of ministers have mentioned. But if we look back the last 3 decades, I think that we can be proud of the achievements of the transformations of the Asia-Pacific region. The economic shift actually the economic power is shifting to the region. And I think that given the complicated development in the regions at this moment, we should work together. ASEAN with all partners should work together to maintain and to build up an open, inclusive, transparent, balanced, and rules-based regional architecture. So I think that the Asia-Pacific region is really the testament of the fact that what we have gained is because we have peace, we have stability, we have cooperation spirit, we have the spirit of economic integration, trade and open trade and investment. So I think that the most important thing for the regions, even we have the engagement and the involvement of the major actors, but we need to build an inclusive, open, transparent, rules-based regional architecture with the central role of ASEAN. So what ASEAN can do, what ASEAN can contribute to this regional architecture, I think that ASEAN can do through several ways and means. Firstly, I think that ASEAN has been and will continue to work with all partners to engage them more to the region in a constructive manner, to deepen their engagement with the region. You mentioned about cooperations and competition. I think that this is the parts of our lives. And competitions and cooperations between the major powers are always parts of international relations throughout histories. But what matters is that I think that the major powers should manage their competition in a healthy, in a responsive manner, so that it not cause harms to peace and stability, and minimize the impact to the small and medium countries. So I think that ASEAN can work with all major powers on this. Secondly, I think that ASEAN has done and will continue to do is to, I think that to support all the initiatives that has been put forward by all major powers in the regions, provided that these initiatives contribute to peace, stability, cooperations, and development in the region. And thirdly, I think that ASEAN will continue to work with all partners to promote multilateralism, with respect to the principles of international law and the UN Charter. I think this is very important points that I would like to mention. And fourthly, I think that, and finally, I would like to mention is that ASEAN as an economic driver of the region can continue to work with all partners, either global or regional, to promote the economic development in the regions, to maintain the role of Asia-Pacific or Indo-Pacific as the driver for economic development in the region. So I think that this is what ASEAN can do. For Vietnam, as an active member of ASEAN and responsive member of ASEAN, we have been and we will continue to work with all ASEAN countries to pursue these objectives. For Vietnam, you know that we are implementing and we're pursuing foreign policies of independence, self-reliance, peace, stability, cooperation, and friendship, and to be a partner, a reliable partner with all countries in the world, and to be responsible member in the international community. And for us, Asia-Pacific is a cornerstone in our foreign policy. So actually, we will continue to work with all ASEAN countries, with all partners inside the region or outside the region, with all major powers, with the highest responsibility to contribute to promote the role of ASEAN, to achieve the ASEAN vision, and for maintaining the peace, stability, cooperation, prosperity in the Asia-Pacific region. Thank you.
Thank you, Foreign Minister Hang. You know, what you say is very true, that cooperation and competition are facts of life. We all have to live with it. And what you say about, we pay special attention to what you say about Vietnam's experience, because you have gone through a very difficult period in the past with several Indo-China wars that you all experienced and all that. And yet you are now one of the drivers of economic growth, and the stress about how cooperation, working not only with your ASEAN neighbors but with other regional powers, is something that's probably, it's not a secret because it is very clearly shown in that. So thank you very much for your comments. Well, ladies and gentlemen, now let me throw open the floor to the audience. Could I ask that when you ask your questions to identify who you are, and then pose the questions, and perhaps keep your comments a bit short so that we have more time for questions for the panelists. So yes, the lady over there?
Yes, lady.
Next to the camera. Perhaps you could put up your hand so that, yeah.
Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for coming here. My question is going to be for esteemed Minister, Mr. Mahmoud. There was talks about climate and how important it's becoming more urgently every day. And my question is about climate migration. So far, UNHCR does not agree there's a term called climate refugee. But this is an urgent issue, especially in the South Asia, like Asia-Pacific region. Is there any plans about maybe making this term more acceptable more accepted for UNHCR in the worldwide global discourse?
Thank you very much for this question. Indeed, in Bangladesh, we have been facing the challenges arising from the climate migrants. If you go to Bangladesh, in the coastal region of Bangladesh, you would find thousands of acres of land remaining uncultivated because of the salinity intrusion and because of other adverse effects coming from climate change. Salinity intrusion is one adverse effect. Another effect is sea level rise. I'm from a coastal town, Chittagong. That is the biggest port city of Bangladesh. I see the difference between 3 decades back and today. So with my own eyes, so I understand what is the impact we have been facing due to the climate change. And as the people in the coastal region are losing their livelihood, they are climate migrants. Some people have, some people's houses are washed away, and some people have lost their livelihood, and that's why they have migrated to the cities and living in the slums. So climate migrant is a reality. But when Refugee Convention took place back in 1940s, late 40s or early 1950s, I don't remember the year, then climate refugee or climate migrants was not the reality. So we are, in all international forum, from the part of Bangladesh and from the CBF forum, climate vulnerable countries, and from the small island states, they are always, we are calling to the global community to change the definition of refugee. So on the basis of the current reality, as climate migrants are the reality. So the the definition of refugee has to be changed. I'm fully with your question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see several hands here. Perhaps maybe we could take 2 or 3 questions together and then we can ask the panel to address it. The gentleman here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. It is a very fruitful panel. I just came from Vietnam yesterday. And my question directly to Her Excellency Minh Heng. The visit of Prime Minister Minh Chin last November is the milestone for the relations between Turkey and Vietnam, as far as I know. So, but the level of, the relations between two countries is on no-name levels. So, what do you think about that? We have to, upgrade that level. So, what do you think about that one for the future relations between two countries, and can we do that? Thank you.
Maybe we can get from maybe the gentleman over there, right at the... No, I was pointing there, that side.
So I'm from Chinese People's Institute of Foreign Affairs. So mostly I'm make some comments, not some questions, because Asia Pacific, we see it's a big family. Of course, every country here, we are a member of this family. And also we see the world as a global village. So we uphold the concept of a human community of a shared future. And we want this area, as most speakers mentioned, we want this area to be a peace, development, and stable. And also in this area, of course, there are more new challenges coming. But what we see is that we want cooperation, not confrontation. We want unity, not separatism. And we want to discuss or solve these not only in our region, but also in the world. We want to solve all these hotspot issues with dialogue, political settlement, and peaceful settlement. And I think this, just now also our speakers mentioned about the climate change, these kind of challenges in this region. But China, we want to play a constructive role in solving all these problems and have good relations with every country here. I used to work in Bangladesh more than 10 years ago, and we have very good relations, I think, with all these countries. Thank you.
You don't have a question for the panel?
The question, of course, how to make more constructive roles. Yeah, architecture. I think this Asia-Pacific regional architecture is very important. But we want more proposals or more advices on how to construct it.
Okay, thank you. And could I see the several hands here? The lady in front here.
Thank you. I want to build on the first question. as you said, Mr. Minister, the climate refugees are a reality. What do you think, I want to ask all the panelists, how the demographic changes, possible demographic changes that will arise from these climate refugees, that will come from the possible relocations of these people, change the powers in Asia Pacific? And actually, I want to ask you, Mr. Moderator, a question too. As you are from Singapore, and from a member of small island states, how you perceive or how Singapore looks the climate change in, from the perspective of small island states? Thank you.
Thank you. And perhaps we could have one more question before I turn it over to the panel. The gentleman over there.
Hello. I have a question for Mr. Balasuria. Basically, I'm interested in knowing about the role of China. China is playing in Asia and consistently in South Asia now, with Sri Lanka having a lot of infrastructure being built by Chinese companies. So other South Asian countries there as well. And my question is like, has China's sort of influence, growing influence, started dictating political realities in that part of the world? And how does that change the future of those countries from the geopolitical standpoint as well as the security standpoint? And whether or not America is also kind of like using this part of the world as a potential bulwark against the rise of China. As a potential bulwark against the rise of China. Thank you.
Okay, perhaps I can invite the panel to discuss.
Thank you very much. If I may also chip in some of the questions, although some of them are not direct to me. I think this is quite interesting. The first question asked by the gentleman about the relations between Turkey and Vietnam. Let me expand a bit further on our relationship between Malaysia and Turkey. It has grown by leaps and bounds, as you know, that Malaysia and Turkey have been very close friends. And of course, there are a lot more area that we need to explore to work together. It's not necessarily in the field of diplomatic relationship, but we have to expand also in other economics area and also technological exchange. And Turkey is very good in automation, for example, and other engineering area, that we are now working closely with your countries to work together, and also to turn Malaysia as a hub for Turkish products in Southeast Asia. That's on the one point. But I'm also interested to respond to a gentleman from China. It's about the China's role in Southeast Asia. Of course, as you rightly mentioned, alluded also by Lawrence and our colleagues here, that we have to welcome all parties as long as they come with a good intention. That's why my Prime Minister has repeatedly mentioned that we should not promote the China phobia in Southeast Asia, because we should also not be given a binary choice, between choosing this or choosing that, extending the so-called post-Cold War containment mentality, which you will dictate to us what to do, not to do, what to choose, what to choose, whether you want to choose this or you want to choose it. You want to be my friends or not friends. Or in other words, a new term they are using now, the friend shoring and home shoring. If you come to us, okay, we will bring all the products, investment to you. If you are not with us, then we will not, to go back. The principles of ASEAN countries, I can share, I think my friends here also can share with us. we would like to bring everyone together in the spirit of friendships, cooperations, creating peaceful coexistence in our part of the world. Because as you know, Southeast Asia is a very dynamic nation. We cannot just single out one partner over the other. So the most important roles, we always stress on the importance of ASEAN. ASEAN as a very united regional power or corporations, where any form of cooperation with other countries must benefit not one particular country. This is where we call ASEAN centrality. Yeah? The consensus building is very important. That's how we survive until now, since 1967, and one of the most formidable associations or regional associations in the world, I would say. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Hassan?
Yes, the question, I mean, how the demographic change is taking place and what would be the scenario. You see, if sea level is rising, I'm talking in the context of Bangladesh. If sea level is rising by 1 meter, whenever it could be, by 2050 or 2100, whenever it is happening, you know, every year sea level is rising with millimeters. So it is happening. So if sea level is rising by 1 meter, then 35 million people of Bangladesh from the coastal region would be displaced. Already thousands of people are displaced. And that is the scenario worldwide actually, because people are losing their livelihood and also sea level is rising. So this is the harsh reality. So the global community has to address this reality. And what would be the scenario, Singapore or other small island state? I was in Maldives just a few months back. I was in Singapore also a few months ago. And if sea level is rising by 1 meter, what would be the scenario? I can't think even what would be the scenario, what would be the devastating impact on the small island state like Singapore, Maldives, and etc. So global community has to address this issue. How to address? First, I think refugee definition of the refugee has to be changed. This is the harsh reality today. And we should deliver our responsibility. I mean, as we have agreed, according to our pledges, you know that after the Paris Agreement, there are pledges placed by different countries. And if all the pledges are met, all the pledges are not being met. If all the pledges are met properly, still the global temperature will rise by 3.3 to 4 degrees centigrade. Now, just 1 degree centigrade rise, and we are seeing devastating impact and erratic rainfall, erratic snowfall, change in the weather, change in weather in Antalya, you know, in Turkey, change in weather everywhere. So we are facing these challenges just because of 1 degree Celsius increase. And if 3 degrees Celsius increase, what would be the scenario? I can't imagine, being a student of environmental science. So I think first refugee convention has to be changed, refugee definition has to be changed, and also we should deliver our responsibilities in meeting the in meeting the pledges, and we should take more action. Then I hope that we would be able to limit the global temperature rise by 2 degrees centigrade, and thereby we could, I mean, stop sea level rise. You know that if tomorrow globe becomes to zero emission, tomorrow, no light, no electricity, no vehicle, no industry, nothing, zero emission, still temperature will rise for a few decades. This is the harsh reality. Thank you.
Yeah, I think my colleague from Malaysia answered the question somewhat, because we don't see the relationship between Sri Lanka and China and Sri Lanka and India as binary. We believe that we have a very strong relationship with China, a historical relationship with China, but of course with India we have a civilizational link. So we want to trade with both the countries. And I'll give you two examples. During COVID-19 outbreak, while we were waiting for the injections, the vaccines from the West, who helped us? China helped us. And it was the vaccines from China that was able to save so many lives in Sri Lanka. Otherwise, I believe that the death toll would have been, twice or thrice more. And I will give you another example. If you look at the economic crisis in Sri Lanka, who helped us? India helped us while we were waiting for the multilateral organizations to step in and help us while there were queues of 3-4 miles to get the fuel, and we were waiting for the medicines and to ensure our food security. India, with its neighborhood first policy, came forward and gave a loan approximately more than about 4.5 billion, and it was due to India's intervention that Sri Lanka was able to recover very quickly. So we believe that both these countries are very important to us, and I do think that in this age when you see countries such as Saudi Arabia and Iran, when they are making when they're having, through diplomacy, they are making friendships. Certainly, the global architecture and the architecture of the global South can be changed if India and China collaborate closely together. And perhaps we might not see another San Francisco conference, but perhaps we can have a San Francisco conference for the Asian countries.
Thank you very much for the questions. So maybe I answer the questions made by our colleague here about the Vietnam and Turkey relations, and thank you for the questions. It really shows and thank you for your suggestions, and it shows your interest on the relations between Vietnam and Turkey. I think that you are right when you mentioned that the visit of our Prime Minister, His Excellency Mr. Phạm Minh Chính, to Turkey last year was successful and was a historic visit. And for Vietnam, as I mentioned before, we are pursuing the foreign policies of independent self-reliance. And we want to be good friends with all partners all over the world. And for us, we attach great importance to further enhancement our relations with Turkey. I think that Turkey is one of the most important partners of Vietnam in this region. During the visit of our Prime Minister, the leaders of the two countries have discussed about the possibility to further elevate, to upgrade the bilateral relations between our two countries. Yesterday, I had a very fruitful meeting with the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Turkey, and we have agreed that we will work together to follow up with what have been discussed by our two leaders. And with that, we look forward to the enhanced relations between Vietnam and Turkey in the time to come. And thank you very much for the questions. I just want to make a very short comment in relating to the comments and the questions that have been made by some of the colleagues here. I totally agree with the views that has been mentioned by our His Excellency Minister of Malaysia about ASEAN and how ASEAN can work, how ASEAN can contribute to shaping the regional architecture. I think that ASEAN is united, and we have the principle we are working very closely together. And the principles of ASEAN, as mentioned by the minister, is that we want to engage with all partners in the world, including the major powers, to contribute to the peace, stability, development, and prosperity in the region. And I think that ASEAN has been and can be a worthy and reliable bridge that can help to promote the engagement of all major powers in the region and to contribute, as I mentioned, to the peace, stability, and development of the region. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I didn't plan it this way, but since I have been posed questions and all, I would like to add a bit to what the panelists have said also. And so I hope you will bear with us, even though we have reached the end of the time, but maybe could just take a few minutes of your time. I was asked specifically about the small island states, but before that, could I just, because the discussion has been talking about the major powers and all that, I just wanted to say, and take on from what Deputy Foreign Minister Hang was mentioning about cooperation and competition. It is something we all live with in the world, you know. And in our part of the world, we will have that also when we face with the major powers. And when we talk about the major powers, usually it refers to two particular big powers in our part of the world, China and the US. But within ASEAN, as my colleagues have said, what we've done is that we have taken the view that we want to create platforms, security platforms, whether at the summit level, which is the East Asia Summit, or at, say, the foreign ministers level, which is the ASEAN Regional Forum, or the defense ministers level, which is the ASEAN Defense Ministerial Meetings, the ADMM plus. What you have is that every year we would have these meetings, and every year all the top leaders from all the major powers would come to the ASEAN country that's hosting these things and to have interactions. And it's only logical. Yes, there may be competition, fierce competition, say, between China and the US, but they also realize that they have to work together. They come to these meetings and they talk, and when you have talk, that is the preserve of what makes diplomacy and what makes the foreign ministries and the other ministries so important. And when you look at the sort of non-traditional security issues we all have to face, whether it's on climate change, whether it's on pandemics, whether it's on finding regional supply chains and all that, it all needs cooperation. And it needs cooperation between the US and China. And if you look at our relations between the two great powers, we may have differences with them, as all countries will have differences with one another. Even within ASEAN, we have some differences within our countries, but that doesn't mean we don't cooperate and work together. And when you look at the US and China, they are the two very important countries in our part of the world. China is the main trading partner of practically all the ASEAN countries. And if you did an audit of all the things that our dialogue partners have given to us since they became our dialogue partners, I would think China would have contributed the most to ASEAN's well-being. Now, that doesn't put down the United States, because the United States has contributed much to the security of the region, to also in terms of investments, you know, because when you look at investments in ASEAN, the United States has more investments in ASEAN than if you add China, Japan, and South Korea combined. So it is a significant contributor to the security of the region, to the economy of the region, just like China is. So we want to have good relations with both powers. And I think everybody in the world wants that also. So we strive to do that. Let me quickly address the question on small island states. Here, Foreign Minister Hassan has given his viewpoints on all that, and I have to agree with him on this thing. Not only because he's the expert on climate change, but also because he has said a lot of the sensible things we have to do. As small island states, we cannot affect changes we are impacted on these changes. But it doesn't mean that we cannot do anything to help ourselves. So even though Singapore is facing rising sea levels and all that, we have devoted a lot of resources, financial resources, educational resources, resources to create greater awareness, to have our companies and our R&D focused on these issues, and also to see how we can cooperate with countries who have addressed these issues very importantly, and to do so. And not only just to benefit Singapore, but also to talk about how it benefits on small island states. Now, we run, together with the IISS, the Shangri-La Dialogue. That's a political security dialogue. But a large component about that is that whereas all of us would talk about the major powers, we bear in mind that a major concern of the small island states, especially from the South Pacific islands, their concern is not so much the rivalry between the US and China. Their concern is about the rising sea levels and the impact on climate change. And they have a voice at this forum. It's an opportunity for them to come together and meet up. And as has been so eloquently put forward by the speakers of this panel, issues like that, we need the cooperation of everyone. All parties need to come together to do their part. And I hope that also stresses the theme of this session, that basically we need to work together, and diplomacy is probably the best instrument that we have to get people to talk together. But at the end of the day, it's the actions that we have to do. Well, I think I've said enough, but thank you very much. It only leaves me to thank the panel, and for me to invite you all to join me to thank our distinguished panel for a very stimulating discussion. Thank you.